Hello and welcome to the Europe Conversation. I'm Stefan Grobe. My guest today is Commissioner Virkkunen, the Executive Vice President of the European Commission in charge of tech sovereignty, security and democracy. Welcome to the program.
Thank you very much.
So with a portfolio like this, we can basically talk about anything. And I want to start with the topic of artificial intelligence, which is increasingly shaping our lives as a society. Now, the European public, like in the US, by the way, is still very skeptical and a bit frightened, and that might be an understatement. Can you reassure people?
When it comes to AI, I think AI is something, like you said, that when we speak about security, technology, democracy, that we can speak whatever topic under this. And AI is something that is very much, connected, all of these topics also to our security, but also to our democracies. And of course, now it's one of the most fastest developing technology. And in the European level, according to polls we have made, for example, for the workers, so in the job market, also in the workplaces, most of the people in last year, they had anyway positive attitude towards AI, even that you were a little bit skeptical that how the people see AI. So more than 60% of the people, they saw that AI has been helping them in their job. But of course, now there is a lot of expectations, of course, towards AI, that how fast it will develop, how it will change the things. But it's often happening with the new technologies that we have very high expectations that in the few years' time, everything will be totally changed.
People are skeptical because they don't know what to expect, feeling a little insecure.
Yeah, and there's, of course, discussing about this AI bubble all the time, that is there too much expectations, that is it really changing so much? But I think in the longer term, AI will change a lot. But of course, in the shorter time, maybe not so much.
Okay. So according to a recent study by a consultancy firm AlixPartners, 95% of CEOs said they expected to conduct layoffs in the next 5 years because of AI. Do you think this is realistic?
We have very different, of course, also evaluations on this, that what it really means now for the jobs market. That does it mean that AI will replace a lot of jobs? It's always happening with the new technologies that some jobs are lost, but then new jobs are also created. But what is for sure, it is that we have to really train our workforce and our citizens for AI. So it's very important to invest to digital skills and also to ICT expertise and also to AI skills.
But 95% that's quite a number.
So, there is a lot of expectations
right.
Also, of course, that AI can replace many of the very manual jobs. But certainly there will be many jobs that AI can't replace the human beings. And of course, human beings are then needed to new kind of tasks.
So globally, there are two AI superpowers, the United States and China. Europe is behind. How can we close this innovation gap?
We have identified, of course, what are the obstacles in the European markets. And I think the good news is that we have everything what is needed to be competitive in AI. So we have the biggest amount of ICT and especially AI experts and engineers per capita in the European Union. We have great research and science in this field. We have also more than 7,000 startups who are developing and training AI in the European Union. But one clear obstacle is that they don't have access to computing capacity. And that's why we have been investing together with our member states to 19 AI factories, really to invest to supercomputers and give the access to our startups and to researchers to train AI. And now we will take also one more ambitious steps on this field when we will launch in the coming weeks the AI Gigafactories initiative. So we are building also 4 to 5 very massive supercomputers. So computing capacity has been one of the obstacles. And then it's also very important now to facilitate that we have also high quality data sets for AI developers. We are also working on that. And of course, we also published recently our Apply AI strategy, because we see that Europe can be very successful when we are combining our traditional industries and our public sector with AI. So these kinds of user cases, we can be very successful there.
I know you're a marathon runner. And those guys
Not very good at that.
those guys take the long view right? So when do you think will Europe be able to really compete with the Americans and the Chinese?
I think it's important that we are building to our own strengths also when it comes to competitiveness and technologies. And Europe has been always very open for global investors and global technologies as well. And that's why we don't have so much own capacity in all critical fields when it comes to technologies. And we have clearly identified that AI is one critical technology where we have to build up our own capacity together with AI, also with semiconductors, cybersecurity technologies. These are very critical technologies.
Yeah. You've said once that on this topic of new technologies, Europe must lead, not follow. Can Europe do that alone? And who are our partners and allies?
That is very important when we speak about technological sovereignty, that we doesn't mean with that we are planning to do everything by our own, somehow in isolation. It's not even realistic, and we see also that nobody can't be competitive alone. So for Europe, it's very important that we are building up our own capacity in these critical fields, but also that we have like-minded partners. And we have digital partnerships with several countries, and AI is one of the key topics also in these partnerships. Of course, USA has been always our most important partner when it comes to security and technology, economy, but also we have digital partnership with South Korea, also with Japan, also with Canada. With India, we have also Technology Council with them. And of course, we are now working more and more again with UK after Brexit, and also with Brazil, for example. We just also concluded our Mercosur deal with Brazil and its neighboring countries.
It's interesting that you mentioned the United States as the first ally, because this is our partner with which we have sometimes locked horns when it comes to technology. What is the right strategy to push back against the Trump administration here and send a message to Washington and to the European people that Europe will not negotiate its values?
When it comes to digital rules, I think you especially thought about this part of our partnership. When we speak about democracies like European Union and USA, I think democratic countries and friends, we can handle that kind of differences in our rules with the respect. And we can understand that we have different rules in some areas. And when it comes to our digital rules, Europeans are very committed to our rules because we want to make sure that we have a fair and safe democratic environment also when it comes to digital environment. So we want to make sure that everything what is illegal in our societies, it's also illegal online, and it's very clear line in the European Union. And US and tech companies, they understand very well, of course, that they have to follow our rules when they are doing business in Europe and operating here. We have to remember that for the European big tech, for the USA and big tech, Europe is the biggest external market. And for some of them, Europe is the biggest market in the world.
Right.
For example, Instagram is having 100 million users more in Europe than in USA.
When you talk to US officials, do they understand the European point of view? Do they understand the reasoning behind European legislation?
I think often in the Eurozone side, there has been now like the misunderstanding that we are somehow focusing only to USA companies with our rules. And of course, we know that this is not the case. So it's always very important, of course, to explain that we have the same rules for everybody. So for European companies, for Asian companies, from USA companies, this is very fair. Everybody has the same rules who are operating and doing business in Europe. So we are not somehow targeting to USA companies.
Now, the most prominent case, obviously, is EU versus Elon Musk's chatbox, ex-chatbox Grok. On Monday, the European Commission announced the launch of an investigation into the company after the outcry at the platform's failure to prevent the creation of sexually explicit images of women, real people, women and children. Walk us through the process. What happens next and where are we going?
We have already had investigation open against X and especially focusing to X recommender system. And now we were extending this investigation with the new decision because also X has informed that they are now integrating more and more Grok to their recommender system. So the AI is running very much the recommender system of X, and of course it has impacts. So we will investigate now further the recommender system of X, and also we opened investigation especially about this, that how X is now and has been really assessing and mitigating the systematic risks what Grok is posing to this online service. So this is obligation under our Digital Service Act that always online platforms that they have to assess and mitigate all the time the risks what they are posing. For example, the people's well-being, for our democratic civic discourses, for the electoral processes. So this is really obligation under DSA. So we opened now the investigation. We are collecting now evidence from the X and Grok side. Already before Christmas, we made the decision that X has to now retain all the documents, what they have connected to Grok and X. And it's possible that we are having like interviews and we are collecting material and evidence and really looking how X has been taking its obligations under DSA. And normally when we are carrying investigations, I have to maybe also remind that we have investigations going on against 10 online platforms currently. So normally when we are gathering evidence, we are coming to our preliminary findings, and this is the step when the online platform that they have to comply with our rules, and if they are not, then the next step is really non-compliance decision, or then we are accepting their commitments to change the behavior and design of the platform.
Would you say that the European Union and the United States have a rocky relationship when it comes to new technologies?
We have some different views. Especially we know that the discussion of freedom of speech has been like dominating very much our digital rules. And I think it's also very important to always underline that we are fully respecting freedom of speech and expression in our Digital Services Act. But in the European Union also, when we speak about freedom of speech, there is also limits because the other people, they have also their own fundamental rights. So some people's like freedom of speech can't go over all the other people's rights also. So we have also balance here. But we have also many of the common fields of interest when it comes to digital rules as well. For example, protection of minors. Protection of minors is something that in USA there is also a lot of discussion about it. And I would say that all over the world and also in the European Union, because we see that really the online platforms, many of them, they have really changed to be more and more addictive. So especially the young people, they are using a lot of time online, and also the content, what is not shown for them, it's not fitting for their age often. Also under DSA, we have clear obligation for the online platforms that when minors are using these services, very high level of privacy, security and safety have to be ensured for the minors. And this is exactly a point where we are now investigating online platforms. But this is something that we have also very much common interest with USA when it comes to online platforms. And then everything what is related, for example, to innovations in the fields of AI, 5G, 6G, cybersecurity also. So we have many topics also where we are working very closely with USA.
Okay. Let's bring in China, if I may. Europe faces significant reliance on Chinese technology, especially in green energy, rare earths, solar, to name batteries, to name a few, and digital sectors. Now, these are strategic vulnerabilities in supply chains for critical materials that could risk economic disruption and security, raise security concerns. How much time will it take to get rid of these vulnerabilities?
This is not happening overnight. As we know, Europe has been very open for global investors and also global businesses, and our industry has also built it very long global value chains and supply chains. And I think the first wake-up call was really during the COVID pandemic, because then we really realized that how dependent we were in some critical sector of third countries when there was many travel restrictions posed and so on, and suddenly we didn't get the components and raw materials what we needed. I think it was the first wake-up call really for that. And after that, when Russia started also full-scale war against Ukraine, we saw also how dependent some European countries were on Russian energy, and it took some years really also to change the path. But now we are really looking at where we have the critical dependencies and how to make sure that we can also replace it with our own production, but also that we can have partners all over the world, that we are never dependent on one country or one source when it comes to some very critical fields of technologies. And of course, semiconductors, we know that it's very vulnerable, the supply chain there, because the supply chains, they are very global and they are very optimized. So often one chip can travel thousands of kilometers before it's finalized. So if something is happening, some kind of incident in one part of the supply chain, it's causing damages all over the world.
Will Europe ever be able to get on an even level with China?
Again, I would say that we have to build to our own strengths when we look our competitiveness and technological sovereignty. And it means that we have to build our own capacity, but also we need partners globally. And when it comes to technological sovereignty, it means that we have freedom always to choose with who and how we are operating, that we are not dependent on one country, one company. We are not forced to one solution, that we have always alternatives.
All right. Different topic. Are you in favor of social media bans for kids, as planned by Emmanuel Macron in France?
I think that internet is nowadays a very important part of our everyday life and society. And it's very important to build up our digital skills. But then in which age you can enter the social media, now the minimum level in the European level is very much 13 years. It comes to our GDPR. And we are currently now investigating online platforms that how they are checking the age of the user, because we know that some very small kids, they have already their own social media accounts. And now the member states are discussing that what is the right age really for that. But we are focusing in our investigations now to that online platforms are really taking the responsibility that high level of safety, security and privacy is ensured for our minors, because it's obligation our DSA. And in the same time, we are also now investigating that how the online platforms are really checking the age of the user. And we have certain high-risk services also, and there we have to be very strict that they are really checking the age. When we speak about gambling, when we speak about adult platforms or selling alcohol or cigarettes, so these are very high-risk services, and there we have to be sure that platforms are really verifying the age of the user. But under that, when it's not so high-risk services, we have to really look at what kind of technologies are used and how we will set also the minimum age there, because of course it means that if we have very strict rules here, then everybody should verify their age. And in the same time, we shouldn't have the situation that you have to give your personal data for online platform. So we are also working now with the age verification tool that you can also verify your age without giving your own personal data.
Commissioner, we're living in challenging, uncertain times, and our conversation sort of reflected that. Now, as we're still at the beginning of the year, 2026, give me one reason why we should all be optimistic.
I think we should be very optimistic because we have said from the European Union side now many times that this is really the independence moment of European Union, so that we have to really build up our own capacity and competitiveness when it comes to defense, security, also technologies, economy. And we have everything what is needed to be strong in all these fields. So when we are acting now together with speed, we can be very strong and competitive in the coming years.
All right. Henna Virkkunen, EU Commissioner for Technological Sovereignty, Security and Democracy. Thanks so much for coming on the show. Great conversation.
Thank you.